Hey everybody, this giant box here contains Merchant's Cove. Well, the prototype of Merchant's Cove that I was given for this review. Merchant's Cove is a 2 to 4 player game that can be played solo as well, in which each person takes on the role of a unique merchant in Merchant's Cove that is going to be selling their unique items to the customers that are coming in. The players will determine where the customers go and get in certain boats, and they will determine where those boats go. And they will also take unique actions on each of their player boards and that will create their distinct items that they make. So like if you're an armorer, you make shields and, well, armor. If you are the potion maker, the alchemist, you're going to make potions or elixirs and things like that. The game will take place over 3 rounds, and what really makes this game distinct is that it is a worker placement game, but it is asymmetrical as far as the different mechanisms that each player is going to be using to create their items. I'm going to show you the ones that I have in this prototype, but the alchemist kind of uses the potion explode, trickling down marbles to collect different components to brew their potions. The armorer is going to use dice and rolling those dice and adjusting the pips on those dice to create different qualities of their items, and so on and so forth. And I'll go into that further when I show you how the game is played. It is a game with asymmetric processes that the players are going to make, and so each person kind of plays their own little mini game that then in turn has a lot to do with the main board of the game as well. So let me show you how the game is played, and we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts on Merchant's Cove. As I said, Merchant's Cove is very unique in which the fact that each of the players is everybody's going to be playing like a worker placement game, but each one will have a very separate and a unique mechanism that will be in place for how they will go about producing their goods. Now, as I said, this is a game about being a merchant and being able to sell your items to these travelers that are coming in. And these travelers come in on these boats up here. And as you can see, these boats have randomly placed these meeples in here. And the color of the meeple that is in the boat will tell you exactly what type of item they want, just by the color. If you're a blacksmith, you make armor and you make weapons, and you make red armor and red weapons and green armor and green weapons. If you're the time traveler, you're stealing relics and treasures from like different parts of time, but they're still just red and green and blue and yellow, and those are the things you're going to be selling. So it doesn't matter what type of item is, it's just the color of the item that you create, and it gets sold to those meeples, those customers that are coming to the Cove. Alright, so this is the main board, and I just want to kind of show this to you before I show you the individual player boards. There's 2 parts of this board that they're really important. One is these are these workers, basically these people that you're going to hire that will come on to your player area, and they will in each player, and I'll talk about this in more detail here in a little bit, but each player has one of these boards, and this is different for each player. But what happens is when you hire one of these people, you will place those into this spot, and you'll basically activate this particular power that you'll be able to use. And I'll talk about that as well in a little bit. And each player has to do it. Now, below each one of these people that are going to work for you is like different icons that give you different things. Like this one allows you to get rid of corruption. These give you goods. These are just powers that you may or may not enact when you do hire them. The cost to hire them and when you take your action is listed underneath the worker. As you get further and further towards the right, it gets cheaper to do so because time is a very important mechanism in this game, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the clock here in just a moment. So like this one takes 2 time, and you have to take a corruption card, and corruption card's over here. I'm going to say corruption cards a lot, and I'm going to talk about them in more detail later, but just think corruption is going to reduce the number of points you get at the end of the game and at different junctures. So corruption is bad. Just keep that in mind. These take 2 hours, and this takes 1 hour, but you get a corruption card. So just then when somebody takes one, what they'll do is they'll remove it like so, and they'll slide these to the right, and then they'll fill up the next spot. Now these characters have this little icon here that has like a faction to it, and you'll notice that this faction matches the faction that's on the board. These different faction houses will be populated and grow with more and more meeples as the game goes on. I'll show you how that's done here in just a little bit. But then when if you match up this icon with the faction house, at the end of the game, you will earn a bunch of extra points. So that's something you can keep in mind as well as you play. Alright, so that is that portion. Down here you have all these different cards that are these different rogue cards that will tell you how to set up the rogues at the very beginning of the game. The rogues den is located right there, and that has some different effects as the game progresses. Mostly what it does is it's going to be a part of the corruption that is going to be reducing the points that you're going to have, and it will affect things that happen. Plus, you might notice that there's like a boat up here that has a rogue in here. So the rogue that's in there takes up a space on that ship, and basically prevents a worker from coming in. Also, it's very rarely, I'm not a worker, a customer from coming in. Also, it is quite likely that rogue will end up into the thieves den or the rogues area down there, which will cause even more of a reduction when it comes time for checking to see what corruption will cost you. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You can choose these randomly at the beginning of the game. You can all agree on one. It doesn't matter. And then, like, this will tell you how many rogues are go in the bag at the beginning of the game, and this one will tell you how many start in that thieves den at the beginning. So, like, in comparison, like this one has 3 and 4, and some of them have special powers and abilities that will affect how the game is played as well. And I do like that because when you play the game, then you'll have lots of different things that will adjust how the game is played, and that's always something that's helpful in keeping a game fresh and interesting. Alright, so the time track. So there's been lots of games that I've played that have time tracks, or basically have a situation where one person goes, and in this situation, whatever disc is on the top, so blue player would go first, and if they take an action that takes them 2 spots to move, they would do that. Maybe if yellow took an action that took 1 spot, 1 hour to move, like so, then maybe green took one that took 2 spots, and then red took one that took 2 spots. Now yellow would get to go again, and if yellow took an action that took 1 hour to go from there to there, then they'd actually get to go again. They'd have an action, maybe they go for 2 hours, like so. Pretty simple, like games like Croftwagen, or if you remember the old game Thebes, has that kind of timing mechanism of like who's ever in in the back gets to go, and as long as they don't catch up to anybody and move past anybody, they get to continue taking their action. So I always like that mechanism. I've always liked the timing mechanism, and I think it's a really fun way to play a game. Now you might have noticed these little icons here, 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 and here. When those happen, what you do is when you pass by that spot, you will draw a meeple, and I drew a rogue, out of the bag that's right here, and then you will place that into a ship. So maybe just go ahead and we'll place that in that one. Now, when a ship gets filled up, and here I'm just grabbing 2 out of here just so I can fill up a boat. When a ship gets filled, the person that puts the last meeple in that ship gets to decide where it goes. Now there's this Dragon Island here, so that means ships on this side can't dock over here, and ships on this side can't dock over here. And you can see there are 2 spots for ships right here. So the person who puts it in there, maybe they have a lot of large green goods, because this dock sells, the meeples buy large goods. Here they buy small goods, and here they'll buy large and small goods, but you gain corruption because it's kind of like the black market. But say you have a lot of large green goods, and you're going to move that one into that spot. Now, say like you had, here, we'll just put that one, and like this one gets finished off, and and if this one goes into that spot, then now there's no room for this one to go anywhere, and you're going to take these out, and this is how these will get placed into the faction houses, and how those will increase in size as the game goes on. And that's just that is every time any player passes by those spots, you will automatically at that point, that person draws a meeple out of this bag and gets to place it onto the board. It is important to note that when you start off, like in the very first time, you start off everybody on the 1, and the marketplace is set up here. However, if you ever have all the boats, if you have boats, like 2 boats in either spot that are so then like all the customers have arrived, you're going to end the turn, like it stops then. So let's say like if the red, like when it went from here to here, that caused at the end the market spot would move to that spot. It would move off the 12 and get sooner. So it you won't go to the 12 necessarily, depending upon like when you've filled up the different spots for for full customers on the boats. The game lasts three rounds, and you're going to have like a round of this phase where it's the actions that you're going to be taking, and like to collect these workers, and also to like move your tokens around the clock. But when the next round begins, what you'll do is you'll take this little token and you'll place it on the 1, and all of your discs then will start on the 1, and you'll begin to go. And then when the third round, you take the last token off and you'll place that like so there. Now, interesting to note, on both this spot and this spot, you can see that there's these little lines here that let you skip past this these two spots here. And when that happens, if a player is in this, like say they're here and they take an action that takes 2 hours, they have the option of moving into this spot if they're willing to take a corruption card. And they will skip actually putting the meeple from the bag and putting it onto a ship, which might not, which takes that ability away from them. It's always being able to like place the customers you want and the ships you want is important, but it gives you an extra spot that you can use, basically prolonging the turns for your character by doing so. So that's is it worth it to you? To like use up the time in that fashion and gain a corruption card because you just so you can get something done? That's up to the players to decide at that given time. So that is the main board and what's going to be happening along the main board. I might reference back to this a couple of times, but the big thing I should mention is that at the end of the game, and this is important, like as I said, that these particular workers that are in these different faction houses, you will have, at the end of the game, you will have people that will match these different factions, and you will also have, here I can probably find one, there are corruption cards that you can take, like this one right here, that will have those factions as well. And you will get to take all of those like things that match with these factions, and you'll get to multiply them by like the different people that are in. So if you had like this particular worker with this one blue, and say you had another one with one blue, and there were like 5 blue meeples here, you'd get 10 extra points for doing so. However, you then will take and look at every single corruption token that you have. Notice how this worker has a corruption location on their card, and this one has 2, as a matter of fact. And plus all the corruption cards, and then you would minus the number by the number of these workers that were in there. So like, if there was, this one had in there, you would multiply that by 3 or 4 or 5, and you would reduce the amount of points you have at the end of the game as well. Something to keep in mind as the game progresses. All right, so now I'm going to briefly go over each of the different player boards to give you kind of an idea of how each one of these different merchants are going to basically produce goods and hopefully be able to sell them. Alright, so this is the Alchemist, and this is their special board. And I'll talk about the actions up here first, and I'll talk about the different things that they can do when they activate their townsfolk that they recruit. Okay, so you might notice that you have this little decanter that has all these different colored marbles in it, and you have your worker right here. And I should mention that they do have awesome miniatures for each of these workers, and they kind of went over the top. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts, but they are really making an awesome looking game with this one. So three things that are going to be part of each and every one of the player boards. One, they are going to have this space and this space. This is the recruit townsfolk location. So you go there and you recruit somebody from the town, and then you place them into that spot to show that you have access to that ability. This spot over here, you will activate any of these abilities that you have townsfolk underneath, like in those locations, and you can choose to do some or any of those. You can do all of them, and you can do them in any order, or you can not do some. It's up to you, but you have to have recruited a townsfolk to be working there to be able to do those actions. All right, so this one you're going to be you're creating either these elixirs, which are your large ones, and you're recruiting the small ones, which are your potions. And you can see like this blue elixir is going to be worth 8, and then remember that's 8 times the number of that color that's being sold. So if there are like 2 blue meeples that you're selling to, this would be worth like 16. And this is 3 for a potion, a green potion. The way this works is that you have these 3 different spots right here where you will be taking like marbles from that and placing them into these cauldrons down here. Now you have these 4 different colors, as you can see, and you also have these black, and the black is called ichor or ichor or whatever you want to call it. It's a wild substance. It can be used for any color that you wish. However, it does create hazardous waste that gets placed over into this cauldron over here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So when you go into these spots, what you're going to do is you're going to declare a color, so because I'm declaring green, and what you're going to do is you're going to take every single one of the marbles that matches that color, plus any black marbles as well. And you also get to claim any other like green or black marbles that happen to fall into that spot. So I kind of set this up just so I could show you this. So I'm choosing to do this one. Notice how it's 2 time. So you'd go 2 spots on the clock would be this. So when you take that, you will see, and in this case, like they'll fall down, and then I'm going to be able to take these as well. And so I have those, and now I get to place them into these cauldrons down here. So maybe I would just go like doop, doot, doot like that, and then I'm going to place this one here. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, after you're done doing that, what you will do is you refill your decanter by drawing marbles out of your bag, and you drop them down in like so. And then so your decanter will be filled for the next action that you take. Now I am going to purposely just set up these cauldrons down here in certain ways, just so I can show you that when you do the brew potion action, there's a certain thing that you can do. And I'm going to place, alright, perfect. This is what I'm doing. So like, say you've done a lot of brewing, and you or like decanting, and you've got a lot of your different marbles down there, how you want to use them. So you go down here and you're going to brew your potions. And so what you're going to do then is you're going to go, and you can do this in any order, however you want. You can create. So if you have 2 of the same color, and I kind of list these down here. If you have 2 of the same color, you can remove those. When you do that, you place them back in your bag, and you can then claim a potion of that color. So you claim a yellow potion. When you have 2 of one color and 1 of any other color, so it wouldn't have to be black in this case, but because the black is like a random color, it could have been like a yellow in there. and so 2 of one and 1 of the other, then you would take those off and you create the large action, so this large elixir. Now the interesting thing with this is that if you had this black wild in that situation, and you did that, I could choose to make a yellow one or a green one, my choice, and see like, and but depending upon where the workers are going and where I think I'm, you know, like notice how there's a price difference, like 6 for the, so maybe I would make the yellow one because it's worth more. So in this case, I would have a yellow, the black would be yellow, and I take, and then the green would be the, the extra one. Now this black one right there, I can't do anything with that right now, so we're just going to do it. Now with this one, I have to place that over in my hazardous waste cauldron. All the ichor goes over in that spot. Now this one is unique because I have 1 of each color in that spot. So when I do, or 1 of like 3 different types of colors, what I do in that spot is I'm going to take then the like ichor extract that is directly above this. I get to take that and I get to move that down into that cauldron, and that's a permanent black marble in that spot, and I have to move it down in from the one above it. Now what that has done is the third thing that is common with all of the player boards is that this, once again, if you notice, is a matches up with 1 of those factions, and at the end of the round I'm going to score some extra points because of the fact that I've uncovered that particular faction for that round. So just that's what you can do, and so hopefully that you're able to do that with each and every one. Now there is one other spot that you can use. It's right over here, and if you notice that there's these corruption spots, if you ever end up with, like, you know, a bunch of black marbles in here and you actually have to fill up in these spots, you're going to have to gain corruption cards when you do that. But before that happens, you can go and use this spot, and that allows you to take all of the black marbles out of the hazardous waste and place them back into the bag by going to that spot. The only other things here are like when you activate, this allows you to destroy 2 of the marbles in anywhere they are with using that. This allows you to take a marble from anywhere and place it wherever you like. This allows you to take a brew action with just 1 of the cauldrons, and this one allows you to get rid of a corruption card. Every single one of the players has that ability just to have a corruption card and get rid of it and cleanse themselves of that. That is the Alchemist board, and I'm going to move on to the next one. Alright, so this is the Blacksmith Merchant, and this is going to be a dice mechanism board. Now, so I've already rolled these dice, and don't worry about what these dice are. What these dice are is dice that you can unlock to use later, and underneath you can see there are those faction symbols, once again, that are going to be common with every single board. How you're going to be able to score some extra points by matching up those faction icons. You can see here, this is going to be your activate your townsfolk here, and this is going to be recruiting your townsfolk here. You notice these 4 black dice, and those start off with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and as I've done, I've already rolled that. So the blacksmith is going to be creating armor and weapons, and these once again come in the 4 colors. Weapons are worth more, and they are your large item, and armor is small. These 2 spots over here create weapons, you can see them there, and these create the armor, which you can see right over there. The blacksmith is a little straightforward. What you'll do is you'll go to each one of these spots, and what you'll do is you'll take one of these dice and you'll slot it into a spot where you think you'll be able to use it to create a weapon. In these locations you will need to use 2 dice to do so. In these locations you will need to use 1 die to do so. Up above here, it actually tells you what the combination, the total of the dice, all the dice, including the coal dice that are in those spots, and also the dice that you're going to be slotting into those spots. You need to either, in the case of the weapons, exceed the number, have high numbers, or in the case of armor, have low numbers. So they kind of set you up to be, up against it by having the coal numbers here being 1 and 2 being low when you need high numbers, and over here there are like high numbers when you need low numbers. But like in this case, if you wanted to make a green or red armor, you need to have 8 or less as a total in this spot. So if you actually like put this, if I went to this spot right here, like so, and I had a 4 plus 2 is 6, I have 8 or less in that spot, I'd be able to create a red armor. In the case of over here, in these locations, I have to go ahead and be able to, the color of the die that's here will determine the color of the weapon. So if I was in this spot and I said, let's go ahead and put this one there, like so, and then that's a 6, and right now I need to get to a 10 or higher to be able to complete it. So if I put that there, this completes the 10 or higher, I'd be able to make my green weapon, and I'd be able to create that. And remember, I've made a yellow armor in that location over in that, I'm sorry, a red armor in that location over there. So that's how that works, and like I said, you're just going to be kind of bouncing back and forth. To actually create them, you have to go to this spot, and that actually forges it, and you actually then get to forge all of them. So if you have them all set up to go, you could create 4 items with 1 forge action. Now, a couple of things. If you don't have enough, you can still sometimes forge the item with like what you have is like in here it's like a 10 or 11, still allows you to forge a blue or yellow weapon, but you have to take a corruption to do so. Like over here, an 8 or 7 would still allow you to forge a blue or yellow armor, but you'd have to take a corruption card. And that's a very, very common theme in this game. Sometimes it allows you to, be able to do things to move forward, but you have to take corruption cards, possible negative points at the end of the game, to be able to do so. But as with any dice game, when the dice get used, they then go back into your pile, and you go ahead and roll them like so. Now, how do you get these dice over here? As one of these actions here, you can use one of your die and you can lock it into that spot, and when you take a forge action, you get to take that die back and any of the dice that happen to be over here, and then you immediately roll them and add them to your pile, and then that unlocks that faction number right there. So this particular like spot, when you have, once again, you have the remove corruption like all of them have. This spot, if you have a worker or a townsfolk in that spot that you recruited, you can go ahead and forge 1 or 2 of these spots, including you could do the unlock a die as one of those as well. Just if you want to do a lesser forge action, basically. This particular spot, if you have one there, allows you to flip up to 2 dice to the opposite end, and that can be any die. You just flip it to the other end, so it is like so. And this particular one allows you to add or subtract from 3 times. Now that could be 1 die 3 times, so like if this die were here and you wanted to make that a 6, you could 3 times you could do that, or you could add or subtract like 2 from one and add 1 to another. You just get 3 manipulations of the dice when you be able to use that. This is just like a lot of other dice games you probably played. It's the luck of the roll, but then being able to manipulate that die as well. My friend Craig likes this one because he likes dice, and this is also something I'll touch on when I get to my final thoughts, is that how each different parameter, each different section of this game allows players to kind of play the game the way they like to play it. But anyway, let's move on to the next board. Alright, so this is the Time Traveler board, and you might notice here we have 2 workers. So what happens in the Time Traveler board is that you will use these workers to go into these different locations. And then when you go into those locations, the reward that you get from that spot will be in the upper right corner of that square that they're in. And then the amount of time that it takes to do that action will be associated, and corruption tokens for that matter, will be associated below. A couple of things. You have the assistant and you have the mad scientist. Now this is obviously kind of both a reference to Back to the Future and Rick and Morty, which I think is funny. But one thing, you have to go in a clockwise manner. So like you do like so, and the the mad scientist can't ever pass the assistant, and the assistant has to stop either at this when it reaches this location or it reaches that location. And you there's no like a minimum amount that you can move. You can go from here to here if you want to. That's up to you. But remember that the mad scientist can't ever pass the assistant. So just quickly, like if you went to this location with one of your characters, you would get to pick either a small red or green treasure, which would be these tokens here. Same as all the other tokens as far as like getting artifacts or relics that you'll be able to use to sell to the customers. And then you'd pay the cost that's associated down here. When you reach these locations, when you and you have to stop as the assistant, you get 2 of these freeze time tokens. And if you remove these, you notice now here are those faction colors that we've been referencing before. Now the extra points that you can possibly get. What you do with these 2 freeze time tokens is it basically gives you you can turn those in for another turn, basically. So if you were to go to a spot that would require you to spend 2 time tokens, you could just spend those and you could replace them. Obviously, you have to have them uncovered at the end of the turn to be able to cash in on those faction bonuses. But that's what will happen. Now, the other thing you have with the mad scientist, when they get to this spot, that unfreezes the assistant to be able to keep moving. However, what this spot does for the mad scientist is it allows them to change up the different time portals they have by claiming one of the replacements over here. Now these things have both a blue side and a white side. The white side, the bottom of it, tends to cost more as far as the amount of time that's associated. So you can see that's over there. And so what you can do is you can then choose to place these so the mad scientist gets to take one of these, and depending upon which one you're at, either 1 or 2, in this case like we'd be in the 2 spot over here, you place that on the top like so and you shove it through. So this one would take the place of that, and then this one falls off, and if it's on the white side, you flip it over to the blue automatically, and you place it onto that location. And now you've adjusted the time spots that you have available. Now you can go ahead once again with the assistant, and they can go ahead and start, once again taking actions and moving about. This one is fairly straightforward as far as the different little mini games that they have, but it is about just maximizing and getting these blue tiles out as fast as possible, and making your chain that you're following as lucrative as possible in the amount of time that you have. The extra time tokens, definitely is do I want to save the time tokens and so I can uncover these faction bonuses, or do I want to use them to have extra turns? Their special board here for the townsfolk that they recruit is interesting. Oh, and I should mention, you might have noticed that there aren't actually as far as on the board, you'll notice that recruit townsfolk is this particular spot, and the activate this board is this spot. So those are 2 of the time portals. But these are special, and I'm just actually going to pick this up and show it to you just so you can kind of see it. These actually allow you to change the treasures. So this allows you to change one small treasure into another small treasure. This allows you to change a small treasure into a large artifact, and this one allows you to take a large artifact and break it down into 2 separate treasures. So you have some modularity there. And of course you have the one that allows you to get rid of corruption cards as well. So it's kind of unique that this one actually allows you to change the things that you make. So with this one, I seem to have used I've used that one to activate my townsfolk more than the others, just because of the fact that I was able to watch the different markets kind of expand, and I was able to maximize my amount of money that I was able to get for either the relics or the artifacts, the large or the small ones that I have. So that one's pretty cool, and I do like the reference to Back to the Future or Rick and Morty. All right, now on to the final one, probably my favorite one too. Alright, so here we have our pirate player. Now, all the different spaces that the worker spaces are going to be up here. Here's your recruit townsfolk. Here is your activate your townsfolk for their powers. But this is a kind of a mini game where you are going to be trying to move these pirate ships out into different locations and then maximize, like they're either catching their fish or uncovering these treasures that are located on these different islands. So, very simply, when you move into this location, you can move one ship, one space. When you go into this location, you take a spinner. Yes, that's right, there is a spinner in this game, and you spin the spinner, and where it ends up, it'll tell you what you do. And this is actually a good, I can tell you about this one. So what this one does is it gives me 2 movement, so I can move I can move 2 ships 1 space, or one ship 2 spaces. And there's 1 gold coin here, which means I have to take a gold coin. I had to place it onto this island here. Now that island is like the cursed treasure island. And these gold coins actually transfer into exact points if I can collect them. However, if I ever have 7 coins or more on this particular island, I have to take a corruption card, because it is, of course, cursed treasure if I go on that location. And then I can collect it in 1 of 2 ways, and I'll show you how you collect the gold off there. And when you do collect it, you just basically put them back in this pile, but then you immediately get to cash in those for points. So unlike a lot of the other things where the players have to wait till they sell stuff to cash in and get points, the pirate player can actually get some points while they're just doing their normal turn. Something very unique and cool about them. Alright, so, but also in this spot, if I want to take another turn, I can take a corruption and I can spin again and see what happens. So it's just one of those things where, let's not go on the corruption again. Here, like that. Like I end up here, and I'd be able to put like 3 more coins on here. I'd have to take, one of these corruption cards that is that giant stack. But now those coins would be there, and I'd have 4 movement points to move my ships. And you can see they're all moved into these different quadrants where you can place them. So let me just kind of place these right like so, and so we can see like these different spots. Now these spots have fish on them, and you notice there's this little fish hook. If you go into this location and you use the fishing action, what you'll do is for each ship, and you can have all your ships in 1 space, and you can collect all in that 1 space, but for each one you'll collect a treasure. So in this case I collect 2 green fish, and I collect 1 yellow fish, and here I would collect 3 gold coins from the cursed island, and I would change those into points immediately, and then I'd take my 1 yellow fish, and I'd have 2 green fish. Now when you do that, you have to move every ship that you activate has to go back into that little cove there to be sent out again. Now if a ship ever either stops on or moves through a location with one of these treasures, you get to turn it over and you get to see the color that's in those spots. And if you are in those locations, and I'm going to put one up here as well, if you're in those locations and you use this action here, you get to collect the treasure chests, and these just become the treasure icons, the large icons that you'll be able to sell to your customers when you do the merchant phase of the turn. Any boat in this location will get to collect 6 gold coins, if there's 6 gold coins available, from the cursed island, and they'll be able to turn those into points as well. Again, you would return these to the center after you've done that, and you replace those 2 treasure spots with treasure chests from your stack right there. If you happen to have 2 ships in the same spot like this, you don't return both of them, because only one of them can collect that treasure. So just keep that in mind. So sometimes having more than 1 in a location, because remember you're just going to replace it, and then you'll be able to do that action again fairly soon. You'll be able to collect another treasure pretty quickly. And as a matter of fact, you can kind of turn over and see what you have there. And so then you'll be able to collect that yellow treasure. The actions down here are pretty straightforward, and I'll just kind of show you the board so you can see. This one just gives you 2 free movement points. This one allows you to go fishing in 1 spot. This one allows you to do a treasure collection in 1 spot. And this one allows you to, once again, get rid of corruption cards. I like this one the most. I kind of liked the using the movement to maximize your turn and kind of, getting all my ships into a place where I could, get a lot of fish or get a lot of treasures, and then cash in. Like I like playing games where you kind of build up, and cash in. And seriously, how many games do you get to use a spinner? They could have used a die. They could use like a 4-sided die for that, but I love the fact that this is actually a spinner because it like looks like a compass and you're using the ships in that. All right, so now I've shown you the base board and I show you how that works. I've shown you each of these different player boards. There are some expansion boards that I didn't actually get, which I'm excited because I'm going to back the game and I'm going to get those expansion and have even more of these boards, player boards, to monkey around with when I get the game. But I'll talk about that and a whole lot more about this game in my final thoughts. All right, this one wasn't able to be thrown because it's just really heavy and full of a lot of stuff. But I just want to talk two things really quickly. Well, one, I really liked the game, and I liked it because of all the different little mini games that were involved with everything that was being done. Asymmetric setups and asymmetric processes are not something that is like really new. However, they are in vogue right now, and this is probably something that I would like to speak on at greater length, maybe on the weekly show that I do or something like that. But it seems to be like because of the success of other asymmetric games, we're really seeing this come into fruition right now, which I think is awesome because I've always liked the idea of like not everybody starts with exactly the same little garden that they're going to be tending and taking care of. I like the fact that each person kind of has their own little challenge, their own little distinct process, their own little whatever that they have to handle. I remember the cooperative game, and I'm going to blank the name of it right now, but it was the one where like each person controlled a different part of the starship, and each one of those was their own little mini process that they did. The XCOM cooperative game had each person taking on a specific role that they had to do certain things when they did it. I liked those games because each person can kind of take the job that best suits them, right? And makes it allows them to feel like, oh, hey, I excel at this aspect. I excel at dice games. I excel at point-to-point movement games, things like that. Where and also, like, if you ever want to just change it up and play a different part of the game, like the basic process of Merchant's Cove is you want to get as many points as you possibly can, and then one of the best ways to get points is to create your goods and sell those goods. But if you get tired of making potions and going through that process and doing the potions process, you can say, okay, you know what, I'm going to be the blacksmith this time. I'm going to be the time traveler this time. And you can play a different role and keep the game fresh and keep the game exciting. If you have somebody that's just crushing it as the pirate, you can step in and say, you know what, somebody else is going to be the pirate this time. You've got to play one of these other 3 roles we have. And the fact that the expansion has even more roles that I haven't even been able to play yet, makes me really excited for when this game is published and I get to play all of those as well. This is a game that is really unlike anything else out there right now. And I can't imagine the amount of work that they put into making sure that they had the same amount of challenge for each of the different jobs, each of the different merchants that you could possibly be, but still manage to have them all have no one role be like more powerful. I think players might dive into this and they might say, oh man, the blacksmith is just, it's too powerful. Oh, the pirate's too powerful. They can just get points and blah, blah, blah. And I think that one of those things is that it might seem that way after a play or two, but after repeated plays of this, I've noticed that none of the roles seem to have any sort of advantage over the others. It's just the ability of the player to use those different powers, use those different abilities to the best of their ability. And then maybe certain players excel at certain types of games. And so, like I said, that's maybe like you step in and say, hey, you can't be the blacksmith anymore. Be the time traveler. Try something new. Try something different, and be challenged by that. But there you go. That is Merchant's Cove. If you are a fan of, like, tough Euros that make you think, Final Frontier has repeatedly just come out with super awesome heavy, medium heavy Euros every year, and I'm really glad that like this and other companies like this are continuing to do that and continuing to make really challenging strategy games for those of us who want to get these games to our table and play them. So there you go. If you have any questions about Merchant's Cove, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Remember, you are an awesome human being, and we all are awesome human beings, but just be the most awesome, best version of you that you possibly can be every single day. It's not easy, but I guarantee you the more happiness and love that you give the universe, the more happiness and love the universe will give back. Until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and like I said, you're awesome.